Hello and welcome to Fan OCC episode 7, where I take an original creature concept from a character artist and create it in my own style using my own techniques in ZBrush and Photoshop. Today's concept comes from Labros Panousis, and he is a concept artist from Greece. And the concept we're going to be using today is called Fire Dragon. And you can check out his links to his socials below for ArtStation and Instagram, and I highly recommend you go and have a look at these other works. Before we go any further, please like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And for those who already are supporting me, thank you very much. And with that being said, let's get straight into ZBrush. So inside of ZBrush, I started off with a Z-sphere and created an S shape for the head and neck of our character. And then after that, I dynameshed it and started using the clay buildup brush to block in the head of our dragon. As well as the clay buildup brush, I also started using the dam standard to cut into this block of clay or digital clay to create more of those iconic forms that you can see on the little concept on the right hand side at the bottom there. And I'm just right now trying to get the basic block out and shapes created for this dragon head, trying to keep as close to the concept as possible. Speaking of which, today's concept is coming from a Labros Panousis, a concept artist from Greece. He's worked on such games as World of Warcraft Dragonflight, Hearthstone, and Smite Battleground of the Gods. He has some amazing concepts that have really rich colors and shapes to his designs. I highly recommend you go and have a look at his work on his ArtStation. And I will leave a link in the description box below so you can go check out more of his work. So returning to the sculpt, I'm just going in with the clay buildup still and blocking in some of those defining shapes from the concept. Working with very basic brushes. Right now I'm just adding an eyeball, temporary eyeball, just so I can get the shape around the eyeball correct. And like I was saying, I'm using very basic brushes, clay buildup, dam standard, smooth, only a little bit of the smooth brush. I don't like to use too much of it. I'd rather sculpt back rather than sculpt and then smooth away the detail that comes with the clay buildup. Especially at this stage, you want to have really nice forms, and sometimes you can actually make some, random shapes from the clay buildup brush, which actually work really nicely. And sometimes using the smooth brush too much will actually destroy your work. Right now, I'm just duplicating the eyeballs, and then I'm going to shrink the eyeballs and then block in the eyelids around those eyeballs. So that's a really good way of making sure that you can get the detail that you need for those eyelids. If you try to do that on the main sculpt of the head, it would just take too long and it won't look as good. But for now, that level of detail is suffice. So the next thing I did was I started to create the horns for our dragon. And this is very easily, you just add a cylinder and then smooth it, and then pinch off one end so it's sharper at one end, and then just use the move brush to make it less straight, give it more of an arc, and then just put it in place using the gizmo tool. And that's just a basic block out of the horn. And then I'll go back in and around those areas, I'll start to manipulate the shapes so that the horns fit on the skull properly. And I'm just now using the move brush to change the direction and change the shape of the neck. I wanted this dragon to have quite a short neck instead of a long serpentine type sort of neck. It's more eagle-like rather than serpent. And then once you have the horns in the place you want them, you can just use those same horns and duplicate them, manipulate the shape a little bit so it's not as similar as the horns, and just keep using those duplication tools to duplicate the horns all over the place and make smaller spikes, bigger spikes, all over the headdress of our dragon. Now, it is no secret that I am a massive dragon fan. In fact, I have created many dragon concepts in my career and also in my spare time. I think the biggest contribution to my fascination in dragons is the film Dragonheart, a 1996 adventure fantasy. I must have been about 6 years old when it came out. And the first time you see a full-on CGI dragon in films. There might have been other ones, but this was the first time I saw one. And the acting from Sean Connery, who played the dragon Draco, was just amazing. Unfortunately, the CG hasn't really aged like fine wine. It is very hard on the eyes to look at something from back then in the 1996, but it actually was groundbreaking for the time. So I would definitely go and watch that film and have a look and enjoy the old style of CGI. Of course, you also have the more recent dragons, and the one I really love the most is SMAUG from The Desolation of SMAUG in The Hobbit, and that was a 2013 film, and I just fell in love with the whole aspect of SMAUG. Even though he is a wyvern instead of a dragon, because he has 2 legs and 2 arms, but the wings are on his arms instead of 4 legs. That's not a problem. I think that it was still an amazing sort of depiction of Tolkien's dragon SMAUG. And I'll actually leave some links in the description box below where you can actually go and see the full-on making of SMAUG. And it's a great documentary by Weta Studios, how they came up with the concepts and how they fully realized SMAUG in the world of Tolkien. I definitely highly recommend you go and watch that. Of course, I can't talk about dragons without talking about the ones in the Game of Thrones and House of Dragons as well. I do like those dragons. They're really cool designs as well. But I think there's something about the way the other 2 dragons that I've mentioned, that they talk and they can communicate, just makes it so much more interesting. I do like I said, the dragons, they come out with some really cool designs. I just like to see them a bit more, and I think that we don't really get to see enough of them. In my personal view, I don't get to see enough of them, and they kind of feel like more of a add-on to the sort of human characters rather than the main event. And I think the difference between those ones and the ones that I've mentioned is that they were more like the main event. When you saw them, they were there, they were great. But yeah, I still like those dragons. Some really cool designs on them as well. So returning to our concept, what I've done is I've just plowed straight ahead and I'm into the more finer detail stage of our design. I've kind of re-topoed the model and starting to use smaller brushes, still the basic brushes, but smaller brushes to give some more detail to our creature. The basic sculpting techniques that I've used on this dragon so far, you can find on tutorials I have created. They pretty much go through step by step on how to create a dragon bust, and I'll leave a link in the description box below for that. But essentially what I'm doing now is I'm just adding some more detail with a smaller brush, and then from that I'll start to use alphas to create some skin textures. Like right now, you can see I'm starting to use some basic alphas that I found online to add some skin textures. Now, you want to be very careful when using alphas. You don't want to overdo it. You want to make it look interesting, but not overshadow, the sculpt that's underneath. So all that detail underneath, you just want to enhance the skin that's on top. And then what you can do then is, once you've plastered the character with all the alphas that you want, you can go in with a brush, like a dam standard and a standard brush, and just highlight more wrinkles or key areas on scales, and that will make it look more interesting. So right now you can see I'm doing the same. I'm doing it with the nostril. I'm just using the standard brush to pipe in some more detail around the nostril, and then I'll use a dam standard to just cut in some more lines of wrinkles. So the main reason I'm using alphas in this way is to get something created on the surface of my character as fast as possible. You could spend hours and months and weeks and days doing every single scale on this dragon. That's totally up to you. I know that some people do that. I find that's very tiresome, and I'll just get completely bored with the concept within a week. So I try to make things fast, so it helps me to become a faster concept artist and sculptor, and in general just make my skills better, so you can do things in a faster rate, and as well as learn things quicker. And to be honest, I think that I go too far with the sculpting. I could actually stop the sculpting stage at the part where I don't add the alphas, and I can take that image into Photoshop and just use maps and textures to add scales later on, which is what a lot of concept artists will do. They'll just make a base model of the head or the body or the creature, and then they'll take that model into, say, Blender or Maya, give it some lighting, and then they'll start using Photoshop to manipulate the image to what they want to see. It's a lot faster, don't get me wrong, but I find that making it my way, I can have some more fun and I can actually have a final product at the end. So as you can see, I'm now just detailing the horns, again using alphas, using the damn standard brush to cut in some grooves along the horns. Very similar to what I did with the actual base model or the head. And then I'll just repeat that process over all the scales, over all the horns and spikes, until I've got something that I like. And in just a moment, you're going to see that I swap out the spheres for the eyeballs that I want. And those are coming from my 20 eyes IMM brush that I have created. And I just swap them out for a dragon style eye instead. Again, I will leave a link in the description box below for where you can go and check those out as well. And so we are coming up to the end of the actual sculpting stage of our dragon, and I'm just doing some very fine tweaks just to make those eyeballs sit in those eyelids a bit better. And then it's on to the texturing stage. Now the texturing stage is basically just polypaint that I use. I try to keep it simple. I create a new material, so I put it on a skins shaders material, drop down the specularity so it's not so reflective, and then I'll just start to block in each color on the horns, the head, the eyes, the teeth, block in the colors first. Then with a standard brush on RGB mode, without the Z add or Z sub, I'll start to paint in the different tones of the dragon. Now, for this one, I decided to add some darker patches on the top and then actual lighter patches on the belly and on the lower jaw, just like inside the concept we have here. And in fact, if you follow the links to Labros's page where the fire dragon is, the actual description of the dragon, it says his friends make fun of him due to the fact that he's pinkish, and I think that's really funny because we see the actual concept. He actually looks very angry at the fact that people think he looks funny because he has a bit of pink skin on him. And right now I'm just going to be using the pinkish tone to add it to the underbelly and to the lower jaw, and then I'll move on to painting the iris for our creature. Just going to add a little bit of black in there just to give it some detail, and a little bit of yellow as well around the edges to give it a bit more life in the eye. A lot of this will be changed in Photoshop later on, so I'm not too worried about that right now. And once I got all the base colors down, I can then start to use masking techniques inside of ZBrush to mask out areas of interest, so like cavity maps and stuff like that, and then paint over those masks to reveal the detail of the scales or the crevices of the scales further. Again, I'm not looking to add copious amounts of detail to the texturing because it's only meant to be there to help me later inside of Photoshop as much as possible. So instead of painting it on by hand inside of Photoshop, it's pretty much got some textures on it so that I can just go ahead and enhance it in Photoshop and composite it further. And right now I'm just adding some darker tones to the ends of each scale and horn, as well as just going in closer and making sure that it's all looking good. Just painting some more work on the eye or the iris, give it a bit more depth and slit of the iris. And then zooming out and looking at the image as a whole, I could see that the top of the head is a little too dark, and I wanted to bring more brightness into the skin as well on the underbelly and the jaw. So right now you can see I'm just adding some more red into the top half of the head just to bring it back to what the concept looks like. And once I'm happy with the colors, I then use the transpose master tool and I rotate the head so that it's rotated slightly down into the left, so it gives us a bit more interest and it's not just a straight on head. It gives it a little bit more life. Just using the masking tool to mask out the neck and then rotate the head, as you can see there, slightly down, looking down and to the right. And then once I'm happy with the rotation of the head in the position, I'll go back into the transpose master tool and hit the T-pose button, and that will actually push the topology into the new position and new pose as we have done. And then finally, we come to the rendering stage. Now, we're going to stay inside of ZBrush for this. You can use other techniques like Keyshot or Maya or any other type of rendering technique you want. But for this very basic concept, I'm just going to use ZBrush. And I really actually prefer using ZBrush to Keyshot and other programs, because you can actually render out all the individual render layers that you want. And also with matte cap materials, you can add matte cap materials and render those out. You can do them in other programs, but because we're already inside of ZBrush, it just makes a lot more sense to just do it in ZBrush. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just render out the main model with a light source and just rotate the light source so I get an interesting shadow effect. And then I'll just export the shadow, mask, AO, depth, and base color, base color of our character. And then I'll start using other matte cap materials to enhance it later on inside of Photoshop. And these will just be things like cavities, a normal light pass, a reflective map, some other color maps as well, just to help me inside of Photoshop later on. After that, I render out a couple of light sources. So using a blend, I turn it to black, and then I'll just render out some light sources, bump up the light so it's higher, and then just start baking out lights. So the rim light, the front light, and any other lights that I think I might need. The more the merrier, and you can just switch and choose between them inside of Photoshop later, because you're going to be masking them out anyway. So that's been the actual ZBrush stage of this dragon. So the next stage will be inside of Photoshop, and I'll see you there in a minute. Hey guys, if you're interested in learning how to sculpt and composite characters, then visit my online stores for in-depth tutorials, models, brushes, and more. Just follow the links in the description box below. Also, if you enjoy this content, then please like, share, and subscribe for more videos in the future. Now, let's get back to the video. So inside of Photoshop, I just imported all the renders that I created inside of ZBrush. I put them into their categories, so matte cap materials and lighting. And then what I'll do is I'll go through each matte cap material, not all of them, some of them. I usually tend to render out more than I need. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and start using layers to find out how or which ones are better to use for the final image. Once I'm happy with that, then I'll move on to the lighting renders that I created, and I'll look through them, mask out lights that I don't need, mask out lights that I do need, and just go through each render, see if you want it or not, see if you can use it or not, and if you can't, don't worry, just move on to the next one. So now I'm using the normal map one to make a lighting coming down from the top. And then there's ambient occlusion, shadow. These were the ones that actually bring the image to life a bit more. So don't be too scared to wait until near the end when you're using the ambient occlusion and shadow to bring the character to life a bit more. The reflective matte cap I sort of tend to use at the very end of the process. So this one's just to give some highlights in, say, the eyes, or some wetness to the mouth or anything like that. Anything that's got a shiny surface is really good matte cap to use. After which, then I'll just delete the backgrounds from all the matte caps, create a new layer at the very bottom, give it a bit of color, and then I'll start to go in with the brushes and inside Photoshop and start to manipulate the image further, and also use existing layers to manipulate the image as well. So adding more light to, let's say, the color map, and then through hue and saturation, and then masking out areas that I think need more light or less light, or more color or less color, and adding some gradients in the background as well. So it's a darker at the bottom, lighter at the top, to fake in some of that sort of lighting. Then I've got a cloud brush, that I use to just give a bit more interest in the background. Not too much, because I want the focus to be on the head the most. And then now I'm going in with a linear color setting with an orange background to bump up the eye a bit more, and this is where you'll start to manipulate the eye a bit more, add in some reflection in there, some more color gradients and stuff like that. Just make it look a bit more interesting and not so flat. And then once you're finished with all the manipulation of the images, you can go in online, grab some texture maps. So for this one, I used a scaly type texture, alpha, and I just plastered it all over the model or the image, and then masked out the individual scales or some parts of the scales where there would be scales, just to enhance the image further. You could actually grab the tutorial that I've created on how to render and composite inside of Photoshop from ZBrush. It's really, really interesting stuff, as well as being very informative. So you'll see from step to step how to do this sort of process. This has just been a very quick speed through, so I just wanted to lay down some of the things that I've did to make the image more interesting and to give us a final composition. But yeah, those other tutorials that I created will actually explain these things way, way better. And then at the final stages is just grouping it all together, merging the image down, giving it some adjustment layers to bring out some of the brightness, some of the saturation, change the tones here and there. You can see there I've just added some smoke as well to the nostril. Just found a smoke image online and just added it as a piece. Very simple, very quick. But like I was saying, the adjustment layers will just bring the image together a bit more, just tighten it a bit more, and then you can have some sharpen on the overall image to sharpen those details. Add some blur, add some noise effects, and then you've essentially got your final composition. And it doesn't really take too much time at all. The actual runtime speed for the normal speed in this Photoshop section doesn't really get beyond 30 minutes. So if you do all the work to begin with, or a lot of the work to begin with inside of ZBrush, then you'll find that this stage is very quick to get through, and you'll get a really cool looking concept at the end. And as we come closer to the end of this video now, I just want to say thank you to my Patreons and my supporters online. I really am grateful that you are following me. These videos take a lot out of me, and it takes a long time to do them, especially once a week. So I'm really grateful that you guys are sticking in there and supporting me as an artist. I'd also like to thank Labros Panousis for letting me use his concept to create this design in my own style. And again, go check his work out in the description box below. I hope you've enjoyed these sort of artist views and artist time-lapse commentary videos that I've been making. They're really fun to make, and I know that people would rather see me or hear me talk more about the artwork that I'm creating, and it does take a lot out of me to do this sort of thing. So I'm really grateful for all the support that you guys are giving me. And with that being said, we're coming up to the end now, so I'll leave you to watch the end, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and take care.